All right, Jeremy. Well, we'll just jump right into it. Yeah, like I said, I do really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think you're a extremely knowledgeable guy, and I've actually been following some of your YouTube content myself with my team and just training with your YouTube content. So it's been
Sweet.
awesome, and I'm really excited to have you on here. And I think a lot of my audience can really get some value from you. So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you want to. Appreciate it. If you want to just take a quick sec, just like kind of introduce yourself, who you are. I know you said you're in Indiana, and just a little bit of background about yourself and who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically, I started my adult life as an elementary school teacher. I taught elementary school from the year 2000 to 2013. I was an art teacher for a while and then a third and fourth grade teacher. Absolutely loved that period of my life. During that time, a couple of things happened. One, I met my wife and now business partner. She's a third generation insurance agent. And
Wow.
long story short on that one, in 2013, her dad sold to Acrisure, so sold to a large, as we know, a lot of independent agencies are selling to large financial firms. He sold to a large financial firm. She didn't really have any stake in that. And so she was in a position where she was like, well, I'm not really valued in this situation like I was before. In the meantime, I had been teaching for 13 years and was really kind of coming to the end of my love for teaching and was looking for something else. I was also broke as hell. I was making $25,000 a year as a teacher. And so those two things came together. And my wife was just like, look, we have contacts, we have connections with great companies, good regional mutuals and some nationals. Let's just jump into this thing. So we started from scratch with a couple of good companies, West Bend Mutual being, really our ride or die from the beginning. And we've grown now from zero in 2013. Obviously, we're about at our 10-year anniversary. We've grown really slow. There's really no interest on my part to take big risk. I'm a low risk, low reward kind of person. I want to grow
Hmm.
slowly. I want to grow smartly. And I've just done that. So we have like a $5 million book, something like that after 10 years, nothing crazy. We've grown about 20-30% each year. We have 7 employees now. We have been growing a lot more in the last year because we've really zoomed in on the commercial side to one specific niche. We have a commercial real estate program that's a national program, and that's been doing really, really well for us. And then all along the way, we did the YouTube videos. I always started the YouTube thing just by saying, who's my ideal client and how can I serve them? And
Hmm.
so that's why we created videos on how to buy a house. That was the first thing we really focused on. We've been around the real estate space from the beginning. And so it started with first-time home buyers, teaching them how to do that. And then started teaching really people how to buy residential houses. So 1 to 4 unit buildings, a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, a
Hmm.
quad. And that fed into the commercial real estate program. So now really all I do is large portfolios of office, retail, self-storage, industrial, and apartments. And that's really the niche that I play in. So there, I gave you the history in about 2 or 3
Yeah,
minutes, and we can take it from there.
for sure. Well, yeah, no, that's awesome. Jeremy, I want to dive in a little bit deeper into like what you just said about so you're doing the multifamily, multi-unit, you're working on the big portfolios. How has that been? Is that where you started? Because when you first started an agency, I know there's a lot to learn and there's, a lot of products out there that obviously you're very, very knowledgeable in at this point after 10 years. But how did you get to that part where you're doing now multifamily, bigger portfolios? What were like the challenges, hurdles, and kind of where does it look like now?
Yeah, I started with one basic concept, and that was I need to understand my ideal client,
Hmm.
whomever that is, and then I need to serve that person. And that doesn't mean insurance necessarily. In fact, most of the strategies I've used over the years have had nothing to do with insurance. So my ideal client when I started, look, I was a school teacher. I didn't know anything about insurance. My
Right.
wife was doing the commercial insurance. I was doing the home and auto insurance, and it
Hmm.
was very local in our town, Bloomington, Indiana, right? And so, but I still wanted to use that concept. And so I was like, all right, let's focus on first time home buyers, like I said. And I started interviewing realtors, lenders, title company owners, inspectors, appraisers, all these people, and just asking them about the home buying process. What that did was twofold. One, it spoke to my ideal client in a way that put me in the position of thought leadership. And then when they needed insurance, they asked me for it, of course, but I was also helping them with other things. The other thing it did is really put me in a position of connection with potential referral partners. Most of your listeners know that referrals from lenders, realtors, folks like that are a great source of business. But you don't, if you're going out and cold calling them and trying to get them to send you stuff like so many people do, most of my referral partners are like, man, people call me all the time and they're just like, hey, send me, it's like very cold. It's very, there's not, you're not
Yeah.
adding any value to them,
Well,
you know?
what do you think you're bringing? Like, how did you bring? Because that I think is everybody kind of at least understands. Like, you should try to bring value to these referral partners. It's not always that easy though. Like, what is the value you can bring as an insurance agent other than maybe just knowledge and doing a good job? What would you say?
Well, the first bottom line is you got to crush every single time, right? Like your
Yeah.
system, your internal systems have to work really, really well. That's just like it's almost not even spoken, right? Like but it should be spoken because so
Hmm.
many people don't crush. So many people don't get those deals done well, don't speak clearly to someone who's referred to them, take great care of them, make sure they have a quality policy, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So all the internal workings, your delivery system are incredibly key to success. You can't talk about anything else until you can deliver exactly what you're promising.
Hmm. Which
Beyond
which
that,
is what for you guys, Jeremy? Like, how are you? What are you guys promising?
so what we're promising is 24-hour turnaround on any request from a
Nice.
lender. And what 24-hour turnaround on proposals, 24-hour turnaround on requests for decks when it's time, or requests for certificates when it's
Certificates.
time to close the deal, or whatever a lender needs, we're going to turn that around in 24 hours. And if you need it in an hour, we'll drop everything and do it. If you take advantage of that, then we've got a problem. But like
Gotcha.
I've
You,
I've helped someone navigate a closing that they called me at 1 and the closing was at 2,
yeah.
and I dropped everything to do it. So you really do have to serve at that foundational level before you start talking
Mhm.
about what other value you can add.
Totally, totally. And do you think that that is one of the biggest things that lenders value is the speed, would you say?
Yeah, there's two things, Len. Yeah, the speed, once you're in the position of being the insurance agent and the deal. The other is the potentially providing them leads.
Yeah.
And we all know that the traffic runs from real estate agent to lender to insurance advisor generally, but
Hmm.
there are lots of strategies for reversing that. I think one of them is a strategy fairly well known around a lot of folks where you have a funnel of some kind where you're attracting first time home buyers,
Right.
or you're attracting people who are moving to your city and bringing them into your funnel and then referring them to a lender or a realtor. It's amazing how quickly lenders and realtors want to start talking to you
Sure.
when you're doing
You
that for
have
other people.
you have lead. Yeah, I mean it's not easy to generate leads for somebody who's looking to buy a house. I'll say that for sure. For at least for us, that's one thing I've noticed. Like the speed, the knowledge, the quality service is a given. Like you should. That's something as a standard. But then those other kind of value props that you can bring in, if you could provide leads to a lender or introductions to even potential customers, I think those are kind of the biggest areas where you show your value as an agent, and that keeps you top of mind too, and also just keeping top of mind. Would you say that's important to you, just kind of being in front of them too, Jeremy, or how do you stay in front of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had auto glass people who would stop by our office all the time, and it was kind of annoying, and I didn't want to talk to them. All these people stopping by your office. Every insurance agent, experiences that.
Right.
We're entirely virtual right now,
Oh,
which
okay.
has solved that problem. But
Nice.
I think touches. So what we do is we have 50 people on a
Hmm.
list that are
Hmm.
either lenders or realtors at all times who we want to have a relationship. Our goal is to at least 10 of those 50 have consistent referrals coming in from them. Another 10 of those 50 have spotty referrals coming in from them.
Hmm.
And then the other 30 are folks that we're trying to get into that queue. We send out, like this last quarter, we sent out a kind of fun box that had a really nice mag light in it. That was like a $20 per lead, per box. scenario. We do that about every quarter. So that's just some way of sending them something um, that gets you top of mind.
Hmm.
Being present at social things and networking event.
Right.
I hate networking, but I went to a fundraiser for, an organization that serves the homeless community of our town last night. And we
Nice.
sponsored that fundraiser and we were present at that fundraiser. And, that's old school stuff, but it
For sure.
matters. But really, being able to bring people leads. I mean, we have the YouTube channel that
Hmm.
has 16,000 subscribers, and a lot of it is just about first-time home buyers. So
For
we can
sure.
drive people into our funnels around the idea of first-time home buying and hopefully be able to turn that around to give a lender a lead. I mean, a lender can make, 5, 10K off of even just a primary home loan.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
big deal if we
No,
send that to them.
for sure. For sure. What kind of inspired you to get the YouTube and the social media game going? Because that's impressive. 16 over 16,000 subscribers is not a small amount of subscribers. So what kind of got you? Was it Yeah, what kind of got you going with that?
Two things. I wanted to speak to my ideal client at the beginning of that channel. My ideal client was a first-time home buyer, and so I was just trying to figure out how to speak to that person.
Hmm.
And two, I a lot of time people ask us questions. Like every insurance advisor out there, you get the same questions asked of you multiple times. And I was
Right.
like, well, if I answer it just once in a video, then in my response, I can still respond. I don't just send people to videos. It just feels kind of cold. But I can say, here's my response to your specific question in a few
Mm,
sentences. And hey, if you want a deeper understanding of this topic, here's a video I created that really broke down what ordinance and law coverage is, or whatever the
right.
conversation is about, right? And so I started creating those videos. And so I created the home and auto insurance video series, which might be what you use with your team.
Hmm.
And, it was just like, I tried to be just a personal, like, here's the reality of how this stuff works
Yep.
in a way that is described from a former school teacher who used to talk to 10-year-olds, and I guess whatever the skill is there to be able to speak in a way that makes sense works for some folks. And I think other folks might just listen to my videos to put them to sleep at night. I
Yeah.
definitely have that theory. But whatever it is works. And so the inspiration behind putting those things on YouTube was really just to try and get that information out in a manner that was repetitious and scalable.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I would say it's definitely helpful. Like the stuff that I've listened to, it's and now I just kind of I just wrapped my head around it. You were a teacher before, which makes perfect sense of why you're doing such a good job with the way you go through it. It's super clear. It's almost, I hate to use the word like dumbed down, but like it is very easy to digest
Yeah.
and to understand, and it makes it, that's really what it comes down to for training. What would you say, Jeremy? Like, if somebody else was thinking about starting up an agency, would you recommend them going and recording stuff like that and training videos for themselves, or what would you recommend for someone even just looking to get started with something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think more important is, again, to know who that ideal client is and create videos that speak to them.
Hmm.
If your ideal client is other insurance agencies, then making insurance videos maybe makes sense. Chris,
Hmm.
I don't know who your ideal client is, but like you make a lot of videos around how to create an insurance agency, how to grow an insurance agency, and you do a great job of that. Now, if you have no interest in connecting with other insurance agents, then I would probably argue that what you're doing doesn't make sense,
Sure.
right? So, but I know that you are, but for someone who's trying to start an agency, it's not about teaching other people about insurance,
Yeah.
especially if you don't have a grasp on that. It's about who is my ideal client and how can I help them. If your ideal client is first-time homebuyers in Des Moines, Iowa,
Hmm.
then maybe it's about what the market is like in that town. Maybe you're interviewing realtors and lenders about what's going on there. Maybe larger picture things like interest rates and down payment assistance and things of that nature. But how can I get the influencers in the
Hmm.
community and
Hmm.
the ideal clients in the community together so that they can grow and learn? So I wouldn't make a channel about insurance unless my goal is to engage with other insurance agents.
Right. So know what it is that you're, who you're talking to, and then before you go and start just spraying and praying just random videos out there. I'll be
Right.
honest with you, Jeremy. Like when I first started making my videos, I had no idea. I knew obviously I wanted to be talking to the potential customers, commercial, personal, whoever it might be that um, in those areas of auto, home, life, or whatever that I'm selling on the personal side, and then kind of similar to what you're doing, like the lenders and the real estate agents and commercial, um, or even just business owners in general. I knew that was my target audience, but I did not know necessarily how I was going to get their attention with the YouTube videos or even just any videos or content that I was putting out. I
Yeah.
really just put out stuff and then just happened to have one that just worked with the how to
Hmm.
start an insurance agency. That's kind of what
Right.
happened with me. And then I literally fell into this weird little niche and just kind of kept going with it. And little by little, it turned into something for me. Now it's like, it's more fulfilling than just like, you know, selling a consulting package or something like that. It's like I'm actually just helping truly get agents to where, the vision, like, dude, even at 5 million after,
Hmm.
the 10 years, I think that's a great place to be. That's very, very solid. Like that's a comfortable spot to be in. Over anything over five, once you get into the 5 to 10 range, I think you're in a very healthy place, would you say? For
Yeah, yeah, but it depends. Like, I hear people out there who are like, I got to 5 million in 2 years. It's like, well, how
Yeah,
many partners did you take on? How
right.
much debt did you take on?
Yep.
What's your leverage? And there's no wrong answer. I don't have any problem with that. That's just a higher risk approach. If someone takes on 3 partners
Hmm.
and puts in $1 million, 1,500, or whatever in debt, and they get to, maybe they just bought a $5 million book, right? I got to $5 million day one because I bought that book of business. Great. That was
Yeah.
not my approach. I have $0 in debt right now. We have no debt.
Awesome.
We've grown slowly. We don't have the nicest house in the, we've just, like, this is the comfort in the lifestyle. And so I would say to all your listeners,
Yeah.
that's what it's about. It's about your why. What is it that you're trying to achieve with this? If you're trying to achieve big money and nice cars and great watches, well, you
Hmm.
probably do have to take more risk,
Yep.
right? You
Yep.
just got to, because you got to make it, if you're going to ball like that, you've got to make it grow a lot faster.
For
Okay,
sure.
fine. That's not my journey, right? I don't want the stress. I don't want the tension. I want peace of mind. I
Yeah.
want the same thing I'm selling my clients when I'm selling insurance. And that's the peace of mind built by, in my case, it's my business that just is like, all right, I know I have stability. And
For
that's what's
sure.
important to me.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. The stability that you mentioned there, I think that's one of the beauties of running an insurance agency or brokerage is that you can take it so many different routes. Like you can go the more conservative, safe, secure route where you're growing, you're not growing at a massive, pace or a rapid pace, but it's very, like I said, I think it's a very healthy place to be at, anything above 5 million. Um, and not having any debt, not having, having that peace of mind when you go to bed at night that you're debt free and the agency's growing, and that's awesome, man. I think that that's a great way to do it. That's personally my strategy too. Like I don't like taking. I'm not a huge agency either. We're just approaching the 4th year in business, and we're
Hmm.
just a little over 2 million. So we're
Yeah,
not
it's
like a
great.
massive agency either. Uh, and yeah, I like it. I'd like that I don't have some like $100,000 like thing, building up interest that I got to be paying down. And yeah, it feels a lot better in my opinion. So Jeremy, let me ask you this. What would you do now that you know what you know after 10 years? What would you do starting over now just to expedite that process? Because I'm sure that if you were plopped back in at zero, you would probably get to 5 million faster than you did at if you were just starting from scratch like you did. Um,
Yeah, I think the first thing I would do is really focus on systems. I think for
mhm,
those of your listeners who are out there with one, maybe you're the only person running your agency, maybe you have one employee or you and your spouse or something like that, you're doing everything yourself, and that's fine. That's what we did for 3 years at the beginning. And what you need to start doing from the very beginning, though, is documenting your process. And that means, what is it that I do first? What is it that I do second? What is it that I do third? Use a software we use Trello. Trello is a central piece of our tech stack, and
We do,
something I've used.
we use the same thing. We love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So
Trello's
you can
great.
put your checklists in there, you can have your templates. And so, I would say one of the things that I would have done differently from the beginning is build those systems more quickly and build my idea of what I wanted my agency team to look like, staff to look like, using a book like Traction, which is a great business, creation. It's a book, a way of building your business.
Mm.
Know exactly where you're trying to go and think ahead to that, and then work backwards from there. Where do I want to be in 5 years? And we did do that at the beginning. In fact, where we wanted to be in 5 years was pretty close to where we ended up at 5 years, right? And you can work backwards from that. So if you're putting the systems and structures in place, then you can start to pull yourself out of the middle. When you hire that first producer, it's
Mm.
such a big hire, right? But if you have the systems in place so that they can hop in, then it works really, really well. We have a director of operations, so we're
Wow.
slowly kind of backing ourselves out of the center of the business. And I think when you're truly a business owner is when you are not the producer, you are not the support staff, you're not even the director of operations. You are the visionary. You
Sure.
are the highest level person, and everything below that has someone else in that position. It can take a long time to do that, but I think that setting that up from the very beginning and having that from the very beginning would have been made me get to where I'm at a lot quicker.
Gotcha. Was there ever a time when you noticed, because as you just said, you kind of started to back yourself out and be more of a visionary and actually be kind of working more on the business, if I'm understanding correctly, like on the business than inside the business.
Right,
Was
right,
there ever
yeah.
a moment that you noticed that like shifted where you're like, okay, now I'm actually working on the business and I'm not really selling anymore? Or
When you hire your first salesperson,
gotcha.
I think that's probably, that's when it's like, oh wow, when you, like, currently I don't touch personal lines at all. I'm very
Yeah,
integrated. I'm the primary salesperson in the commercial real estate program. But in the personal line side, we have every role set up so that machine runs, right? And
for
so
sure.
one vertical in my agency runs itself. That's pretty exciting, right? It's like, okay, we got out of that. Neither my wife nor myself are running that. Of course, we're keeping track. Of course, we're collecting data. Of course, we're holding to task. Of course, we're making sure that our operations manager is doing all the things they're supposed to do. But for the first time, we are not involved in one entire vertical of our business. I think that's when you start to realize, oh my gosh, wait, if I can do that now on this side, then I'm not involved in either. And now I'm truly the visionary. And that's when, you say, well, the 12-hour days slow down to maybe 4-hour days or 5-hour days. And not that they're 12-hour days. I have a lot of flexibility, but I work pretty hard. And
Yeah,
I'm working towards not working as hard. Maybe we all are. I don't
sure.
know.
What is that kind of goal for you, Jeremy? Like, where do you see it going? Eventually 3 to 5 years from now.
I love being the voice of our brand. I love being the face of our brand. I love being out there talking about what we do, why we do it, why we truly care, and what people can expect from us. So I think my goal is to make that my job. And so that, I'm out there on podcasts. I'm out there running my podcasts. I'm out there running my YouTube channel. I'm driving the brand forward. And then when people attract to the brand, they see me as a thought leader, they attract to the brand, then there are awesome people who take care of them from there. And I think that's what I'm working towards. And that's the goal
Hmm.
for the next couple of years.
I know you said that you want to have awesome people there for them, and that's those verticals you're talking about. Is
Mhm.
you're just leading them into your vertical of the personal lines or the commercial lines. Eventually, maybe you get yourself out of the commercial completely. What is your strategy of getting those people in the right seats? And then on top of that, kind of what is the most important pieces of the processes that are making that vertical work, would you
Yeah,
say?
that makes a ton of yeah. So it starts with those systems, right? So we have every seat defined. So we have a org chart that
Mm,
has pods, and each of our pods has a producer, has an account manager, and then has a VA support person.
Oh, nice.
And
That's
so
awesome.
each of those, so, inside we have two verticals, as I said, local, home, and auto here in Bloomington, Indiana. That's
Okay.
one of our verticals. That's expanding out to Indiana as a whole, but we're not going to leave Indiana. Our personal home and auto will always be in Indiana. So that's our one vertical. And then the
Nice.
other one is the commercial real estate. That's a national program
Mhm.
that we're doing very, very well in. Each of those has one of those pods right now: a producer, an account manager, and a VA support person. I
Mhm.
happen to sit in the role of producer on the commercial side right now.
Mhm.
I'm actively looking right now to bring someone into that position
Mhm.
and be in that position. And one of the great things about working for us is you have an account manager and a VA support person, and on the commercial line side, a market coordinator who takes, goes out to our companies and gets quotes. So we've got a system underneath, and then you can attract producers, because if someone comes in, so many agencies, what they say to a producer is, look, maybe we'll give you some salary for a little bit, but then you're 100% commission. Here's how the commission structure works. We don't have a brand that's really driving any business in. It's on you to drive business in. What
Mhm.
I can say to producers is, look, I've got a support system that's going to make this easy for you. I've
Yep.
got a brand that is going to drive business in and make it much more sticky. Our close ratio is pretty high for a couple of reasons, but one of them just being that our brand is fairly sticky. So now you can attract great producers because you're going to pay them well, and their job's going to be easier than the place they're working right now down the street.
I love that you're kind of building in that infrastructure to support the people coming in, and also gives them a confidence boost to be like, hey, this is not just going to be me running like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to
Yeah.
figure out all these different things. The producer and then the account manager and the VA, I want to touch on that a little bit more. Like, so the producer, are they doing pure work and leads and sales, and then the account manager more service based? And then what does the VA do to support the whole thing? Like, how does that triangle, or like that's, I don't know how you organize
Yeah.
it, but how does that work?
So we organize it as a life cycle, right? And so the life cycle of an insurance policy is in a circle and
Mm,
continues through that in circle. The only things that either come in or out, or a prospect who would be coming in, and then a cancellation who would be going out, right?
mm,
And so the account manager navigates the circle. So that would be endorsements, renewals,
mm.
uh, cancellations, billing issues, contact in the middle, anything that's sort of in the just typical life cycle of an existing policy. A producer navigates the prospect and the binding pieces of the workflow, which is
Right.
prospecting is from stranger to um, them having a quote in hand to them saying let's go. Binding is the short period from let's go to
Mm-hmm.
everything's put to bed with the policy. And
Mm-hmm.
then we don't 100% pass it to the account manager, though. The producer is always in the mix. So
Yeah. Yeah.
producers seed on stuff a lot. The producer is expected to engage in claim scenarios when those things happen. And so that's the producer and the account manager. Our VA team works underneath that. And so I'll give you a quick example. If someone calls and says, hey, I've got a 10-story office building in downtown Cleveland, Ohio,
Mm-hmm.
then we're going to collect all that information. The VA team is going to enter it into our agency management system. They're going to go out and quote the companies that we tell them to quote. If it's an online company system like Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Nationwide, State Auto, those kinds of companies, they're plugging all the information and then handing it back to us. So anytime
Mm-hmm.
something can have a repetitious act, it goes out to the VA team. And Trello is perfect for that,
For sure.
because it's just like the workflow is exactly the same every single time. They check off everything that they do. So that makes consistency in their workflow, and it makes us really, really scalable.
Yeah. And so you said you're 100% virtual, right? So
Correct.
you're not, nobody's in the office. How does that look for the training aspect of it for, virtual employees? Is that a challenge? Like, how's that been? Or how do you go about obviously you got the videos, which is amazing. But not every agent is able to do what you're doing. Um, how has that been for you? Like the like actual training of all these virtual team members?
So it comes back to those systems. I actually think
Yeah.
virtual is easier to train people. So, we have an
Mm,
operations manual that really lays out exactly who we are as an agency. And so we start our training like that. But, we get on a Zoom call and then we can share screens back and forth. And so it's really seamless in the way that we're able to train folks. And so at first we're training people about our brand and our philosophy and our approach to everything. Obviously, it depends on the role. An account manager is going to be a different kind of training process than a producer.
Hmm.
But we train them through those higher level things, and then we just dig straight into the workflows. Those Trello workflows are the heart of our training process, along with the heart of our operating system every single day. And
Hmm.
so when
Hmm.
someone comes in after we get that high level stuff done, some of those kinds of trainings, we just dig straight in. Okay, well, you're a CSR, you're coming in, or as an account manager, let's start with endorsements, right? So
Hmm.
what's the first phase of an endorsement workflow? What's the second phase of an endorsement workflow? And so on and so forth. And our phases are all exactly the same. So there's generally three, and
Hmm.
it is, phase one is set the thing up. Phase
Hmm.
two is do the thing.
Hmm.
Phase three is make sure the thing was done.
With so make sure that the thing is done, you said?
Yeah. Yep.
And so is that like how do you go about making sure like what does that mean? Does that mean like notes or how do you guys?
So let's use an endorsement as an example, right? So somebody wrote me before our call today and said, hey, I need to add a new car to my personal insurance policy. Now, of course, they wrote me an email, which isn't actually the workflow. We kind of teach them to go to our client center, but they didn't do that. They wrote me because, that was fine. So I said, no problem. Dylan will take care of it. That's our personal account manager. And then I went through phase one
Hmm.
of our personal insurance workflow, which is set it up in the agency management system, make sure there's a task for Dylan to do phase two,
Ah,
XYZ, probably 6 steps. Very, phase one is always really quick because it's
gotcha.
just make sure that phase two is set up, that the person who's doing phase two has everything they need, right? So I'm done. I don't have to touch it again. Dylan gets a task inside the agency management system that says complete personal endorse phase two. Dylan says, okay. Now Dylan's done this a million times, so he doesn't have to go to Trello necessarily to start it out. But if
Mm,
he was being trained, he would go to Trello and he would just do all the things, and gets that taken care of. If it's going
interesting.
to our VA team, then we just set the thing for them. They see the task, they do all the things there. So that's the do it part, right? Phase two, Dylan is going to add the car or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then he's going to send an email to the client, hey, we got this taken care of for you, here's the documents you need, and then is going to set a task for 10 days from now to complete endorse phase three.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
phase three, that's just to go into the company site, make sure that things were good, make sure all the billing was taken good care of, make sure everything's put to
Mm.
bed, and shut down that workflow.
And
And yeah.
and those tasks you said you're doing through your management system, or are they doing Trello like connecting? Because I use Trello pretty basic level. I don't know. I think I know there's more automation that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
But are you doing that directly with your management system task, or what management system are you using?
We're in Easy Links, which will be
Nice.
applied pretty soon, probably. But I mean, Applied bought them already. I don't know how long Easy
Yeah.
Links will stick around. But yeah, I think Easy Links has this functionality. Like you could probably, if someone's listening to this podcast who works for Easy Links, they're probably like, well, you don't have to do that in Trello. You could do it in Easy Links.
Yeah.
I have found Trello to be much more flexible, much
Yes.
more capable, much more, collaborative in
Yes.
how our whole team can use it. And so our workflows are not in Easy Links. They
Yeah.
are outside of Easy Links. Having said that, all of our task assignments
Hmm.
are in Easy Links.
Task assignments. Okay, gotcha. So you
So
assign them
if,
on directly on Easy Links.
yeah, so even though, so Trello tells you what to do.
Ah, gotcha.
And so, but Trello tells you to do something in Dropbox, tells you to do something in your email, tells you to do something in Easy Links. So Trello is the directive, right? Is the process, is the
So,
standard operating procedure. Inside of Trello, it would say create Easy Links task, complete
mhm.
personal endorsement phase two, right? So our task assignments are inside of our agency management system. Our workflows are not. I would imagine a lot of listeners do have their workflows inside of their agency management system, which I would love to do. I just have not found it to be
Yeah.
flexible enough to do it there.
As far as you, are you guys just dropping like a card on Trello and like labeling it like who it's for? Like with a color code maybe, or how are you guys doing that?
Yeah, so it's the Kanban look, right? Where you've got, so in our example, and you could be using Monday.com, you could be using Asana, you could be using
Sure.
Airtable, you could be using Trello. There's tons of tech that does this. But
Hmm.
essentially we have boards.
Yeah.
Inside of boards, there are lists, and
Right.
inside of lists, there are cards.
Yep.
And so the boards are all the workflows. So that would be a prospect workflow, or a binding workflow, or an underwriting workflow, or a renewal workflow, or an endorsement workflow. So each board
Got it. Got
is a
it.
workflow. And, obviously, then we have a separate commercial board and a separate personal board. And then each
Nice.
list is a phase in that workflow. And then
Gotcha.
each card is a specific client who has that. So if it's that add a car endorsement, then we're going to add a card
Hmm.
onto the phase one list of the endorsement board in our
Mm.
workflow. And inside that card
Hmm.
is a template checklist that just gets automatically added to every card that we create, right? And
Mm.
so that is the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty tasks that
Yeah.
have to happen in each of those phases.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I think that's it's really important. That's why I asked the questions, because this is just stuff people don't talk about, like
Yeah.
the actual in depth, like what's going on behind the scenes. And I talk to agents all the time. They ask me like, well, how do I set up my processes and my procedures? And this is it, like these are the
Yeah.
little things that that are just not spoken about enough. And it would be amazing if there was one system like Easy Links or Applied, whatever it's going to be bought
Hmm.
out, that just did it all in one. And I hope eventually they figure it out. So we're shouting out Easy Links here. I hope they get that.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah,
they,
you can certainly call me and ask me for my workflows. We could talk through it. But Chris, one of the things I just want to point out about this
yeah,
is how great this is for your team. Because after you've been trained, after you've worked through this process, you still have to use this every single time. I still
yeah,
check off every single thing in every single phase every single time. Now I do all the stuff, and then I just go into Trello and I'm like, ding, 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 ding. Oh, I
mm,
forgot to do that, and I go do that, right? But
nice.
the part I love the most about this is if someone has a problem, if something doesn't work, if
Hmm.
something is broken, if something could be better, if something could be made different, we have something to focus that conversation on. So when we get together as a team on Wednesdays and someone says, hey, I'm struggling with this, we can go directly back to our workflows and say, well, where is the
Right.
weakness in this workflow? Where is the weakness in the system? How could we adjust this, change this a little bit, adjust the wording? And when we solve it, we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important, man. Being all on the same page and like having seeing what is not working in the actual system. So that's a great point. I think when it comes to those processes. Um and Jeremy, I want to be respectful of your time too. I know we've been on here for a bit. I want one of the questions I always like to ask for my audience specifically, because a lot of agents are just kind of getting going. What would you say is like your number one piece of advice if someone's just getting going and wants to build a rewarding career in insurance, similar to how you've done it?
Find where you have the value. I imagine a lot of your listeners are independent agents. It's a little easier for those of us that are independent agents than a captive agent. But if you are an independent agent and you're seeing that the companies you have are not competitive, go find other companies.
Yeah,
Like, that is the whole point of what we're doing here. Don't be scared to have multiple companies in. Now, when you're first starting, it can be hard to do that. And some of the ways you can do that is maybe aggregators or
yeah,
folks who can help you get access. I know access is hard at the beginning, and I don't envy being in that position. It took us a while to get to the point where we could get some of the best companies out there, and that
yeah,
just is part of it. But if you're not competitive, see if you can find ways to be competitive, but always lead with value. I would say do things like decide not to write auto policies with low liability limits because it's just against your morals. Decide to put water backup coverage on every homeowner's policy, even if it's more expensive, because it's just against your morals not to have it, and
yep,
stick by those choices. And I think that I've I've come to terms with the idea of being a salesperson, but it's never felt quite right, right? Because all you're doing is providing value, but
Yeah.
you have to have the value in the first place. And that's why I don't envy captives, because they don't know if they have the value or not, right? There's
Right.
no, in the back of your mind, you're always like, well, I might not be the best option out there. And so I've got to battle on price, or I've got to battle on other things, like battle on quality.
Yeah.
And then my other piece of advice is just find your niche,
Yeah.
do the niche thing. It really does make your story better, makes you as an advisor more sticky, and
Yeah.
gives you something to latch on to when the question in your head is, what should I do to attract business?
100%. I love both of those. I definitely, we take pride that we do very similar things. I tell my team all the time, we're not just here to hit numbers. We're not here to just push policies. We're big believers that there's nothing that, the only difference you have and you make between you and the other agency just down the street is the value that you're providing to your customers and putting them first and just being customer oriented and customer focused and going that extra mile. And for sure, like you said, believing in something as far as the coverage, like throwing the water backup, even though you know that the other quote that might be coming in that you're competing with might not have it. It might be a little bit cheaper, but the value there. And the funny thing about that too, I think, Jeremy, is that it ends up building more trust with the customer, and then they end up going with you anyway.
Yeah.
So your best bet is to treat everybody like it's like your family almost, and give them the advice and treat them the way that you would treat like your best friend. And ultimately, like that will lead back and having those open, uncomfortable conversations, and not disregarding and not focusing on the price. But I agree,
Yeah.
captive world makes it tough, man. You got to really
Yeah.
either believe in your company hard or
Yeah.
yeah, it's just
Can I
tricky.
tell you a quick story on this
Yeah,
topic?
for sure, man.
It's a little off topic, but it's like you also have to be willing to say no. And I know that is so hard for folks who are just starting. And I didn't say no a whole lot at the beginning. I'm able to say no a lot more often now than I was then. So I get it. But the power of saying no. I had an opportunity a couple weeks ago, about a $60,000 insurance policy,
Nice.
for, it was a decent sized policy. And I was working with these people. It was a referral from someone else who was already a client, so that seemed like a good connection. But in the
Hmm.
real estate world, especially the commercial real estate world, there's always multiple players, and so often, even if you have a great relationship with one of them, there's somebody else who has another relationship with someone else, some other insurance agent, and so there's always kind of a little bit
Sure.
of a game going on there. And so I saw what was happening. I saw what the other agent was doing. And I knew that they were just making a price play, and that their coverage in the end wasn't going to get the deal done, because in the commercial
Hmm.
real estate world, lending has really high expectations.
For
And so,
sure.
you're going to get burned by lending in the end if you're sending out crappy policies anyway. And so I
Yep.
just said to this investor, I was like, look, I don't play this way. I really see what here's what this other agent is doing. I'm going to tell you exactly how it's going to turn out. I'm just not interested, because it doesn't make sense for me to battle on price when I know what you need and I know what you need done. I want to be a member of your team, just like your attorney, just like your lawyer, just like your property managers. I want to be a member of your team, and you're treating me like a commodity right now, and I'm just not interested. So best of luck to you. I probably said it nicer than I just said it, but
Sure.
like that was basically the gist. And I shut her down and moved on with my life. And
100%.
and as has happened so many times, so that was maybe lesson one on saying no. Hey, don't mess with it. But what happens in so many of these scenarios when you do that,
Mm.
you already know this, I'm sure, Chris. I
Hmm.
got a phone call 4 days later that was like, hey, or it was a text like, hey, can we chat?
Hmm.
And so I called him back on the way home from hanging out with my dad or whatever I was doing. And he was like, look, all the things that you said would happen did.
Wow.
And I'm wondering, we're trying to close this deal. We're like 4 days away.
Mm.
And will you jump back in and help us out? And I guess some people listening would say the answer to that is no.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
for me, it was like, okay, well, I can see the shift now. Like the person understands the value at this point. And so I was like, yeah, I'll absolutely jump in. I jumped in, solved the problem, got it done, deal
Mm.
got closed, everything was fine. that's value. Like that felt like adding value. I don't know,
For
so
sure, man. 100%. I think you
yeah,
totally did. It's funny that you say, because also I have a bunch of good buddies that are in commercial real estate. And they're telling me, especially now, right now with the, prices and the fluctuations and values, and people don't know what stuff's worth necessarily, at least here in California. That's how it's looking.
right.
Um, my buddy the other day was just telling me how there's certain brokers that'll come in and these people are trying to list their, $5 million property, and it's really now worth, 4.1. But they have brokers that'll come in and say, we'll sell it for 5 million if you give us the deal. And they're basically lying through their teeth, saying, just to try to get their foot in the door with the opportunity with that client. He's like, dude, I don't know what to do, man. Like, it's tricky because these other guys are just coming in promising these overvalued prices that are just not realistic. And I told him, I was like, look, man, you got to just be transparent with them and lay them out exactly how you just did, Jeremy, saying, look, I completely hear you. I know the other guy's telling you 5 million. I'm going to tell you straight up. I could tell you it's 5 million, and I could, so that I could get this opportunity to do this deal with you, but I'm going to be real with you. It's really worth 4.1.
Yep.
Now, you can go with that guy. You can drag your feet, waste 3 or 4 or 6 months, having that thing sit on the market. Or you can really come down to earth and real. There's a better way of saying it when it comes to, I'm not a real estate,
Yeah, no, you're right.
but along
Yeah.
those lines, just being transparent, saying, hey, this is the reality of the matter right now. This is what could happen. This is the situation. This could actually turn out worse in the long run. Your thing's sitting there. It could not close, in time for the closing. What all the other things that, when it comes to the insurance side of it. But yeah, man, I think just being transparent and painting that picture also of what the value it is that you bring, and explaining and demonstrating your knowledge, I think will ultimately lead to success too. So yeah, I
Yeah.
100% agree with you, man. I think that's the way to go.
Just be you. I think that's the bottom line. Like, and if being you means a sleazy salesperson, maybe like I don't know, there's plenty of sleazy salespeople in insurance, so maybe it is a good place to be if that's who you are. But that's not who I am, like, and I try and just be me, and I try and just say as best I can, say it the way it is. And I've lost big deals because I was honest, and
Yeah,
but I've gotten a lot more big deals because I was honest. So
100%. It's worth it, man. It's always worth it. Just be true, speak from the heart, and uh, you know, I think good things will come to those too. Those
mhm.
agents. So yeah, man, Jeremy, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like I said, I want to be respectful of your time here too. Um, Jeremy, can you real quick just shout out where people can find you if they want to follow you and consume more of your content and educational stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the YouTube channel. It's just Shine Insurance. If you have commercial real estate stuff and you don't know how to handle it, I'd be happy to take care of it for you and work out some kind of split on it. You can find
Yeah,
me on LinkedIn or at shineinsurance.com.
awesome. And then do you do all what, how many states do you, or is it just Indiana, or what states are you in?
For the commercial real estate, it's all 50 states. For
Awesome.
personal lines, it's just Indiana.
Okay, awesome. So you have flexibility too. So if agents see this, and then you want to, you got some big deals coming up with the commercial, Jeremy's your guy. So awesome, Jeremy. Thank you, man. I really
Hey,
appreciate it. We'll hopefully stay in touch, and then, dude, yeah, keep putting out some of those good training stuff. It's very valuable for we could use it. We love the train. Any knowledge that we could consume and build for the team is very important. So really appreciate you doing that too, man. Thank you.
absolutely. Happy to. Thanks for having me on, Chris. It was a
Of course.
pleasure.
Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.